A respected Harvard professor stands at the front, explaining why a tiny self-correcting gear system could never work. People nod, trusting every word. Near the back, Maya Brooks waits with a small case in her hands. She is only 12, quiet, and unnoticed. Onlookers glance at her and move on, assuming she is there to help someone else. Yet her case holds something she refuses to hide forever. Maya finishes signing her name at the demo desk. Her badge is printed without a team logo, and the volunteer behind the table barely glances at her before pointing her toward the far end of the hall. She follows the signs past crowded displays lit with spotlights and stacked trophies. Each booth has a name banner held high, bold letters telling everyone who belongs. Her space has nothing but a folding table and a power strip. She sets down her small case and keeps her badge straight, even though no one stops to read it. People flow by in steady waves. Some carry clipboards. Some wear shirts that match. None of them slow down. Maya watches the crowd from behind her table, holding her case close to her chest. Sparks fly at a welding station nearby, drawing cameras and applause. A group of judges walk past her without making eye contact. Their eyes stay on the polished machines at the center of the room. Maya's booth is quiet enough to hear her own breathing. The silence presses down, not angry, just heavy. The professor stands near the main stage, swapping comments with other experts. He laughs with a group of engineers while pointing toward a complicated robotic arm that wows the crowd. Maya keeps glancing in his direction, but his attention never reaches her corner. Every nod he gives someone else feels like a wall that closes again. She lifts the lid of her case and checks her gear pieces with slow, careful hands, tightening a screw that is already tight. Her fingers shake a little, and she pulls her sleeves down to hide it. A volunteer walks over and asks if she needs directions to the bathrooms. Maya says she is waiting to present, but the volunteer doesn't hide confusion. They tell her to check with registration again. She walks over, waits in line, and shows her badge. The staff confirms she is scheduled, but her time slot is at the very end. She returns to her booth and sits on the edge of a chair that wobbles. A group of younger kids pass by, staring at the empty table behind her as if wondering why someone is sitting alone. None of them see the careful weight she carries. A competitor from another booth wanders close, looks at her gear case, and asks who she is assisting. Maya keeps her voice steady as she says she is the one presenting. The competitor blinks, mutters something polite, and hurries off. The message underneath hangs in the air. She does not fit the picture of who builds things here. Maya closes her case again, feeling the click of the latch like a reminder. She smooths the badge on her jacket again, even though no one has read it yet. Throughout the morning, the professor drifts past her area twice. Neither time does he see her. His attention stays locked on the big exhibits filled with noise and motion. Maya stands tall each time he walks by, but his gaze never moves in her direction. The air around her booth seems still, untouched by all the movement around it. The crowd gathers in tight circles elsewhere. Here, space stretches wide enough to feel like distance. Maya moves her chair closer to the back wall and opens her case once more. She examines each part of her gear assembly in the quiet. A tiny metal piece slips between her fingers, and she catches it before it hits the floor. She breathes out slowly. She knows these pieces better than anyone else in this room. But knowledge without notice sits heavy. She sets the part back in place, turning it until it aligns just right. She checks her tools again, though she already knows their order by heart. Hours pass. Announcements echo through the hall. Maya hears each name called, each project displayed, each burst of clapping that does not reach her table. She keeps working with quiet hands, adjusting tension, tightening screws, polishing the surface of the gear housing with a cloth she brought from home. The cloth is worn at the edges from practice. The metal shines brighter under her touch, but no one sees the light bounce off it. A group of adults walks nearby, talking about the professor's earlier remarks. They mention how no one could solve the small-scale problem. Maya listens without reacting. Their words settle around her like dust. She wipes her hands, stands, and sets the device back inside the case. Even a flawless design means nothing without a chance to show it. She watches the expo officials check schedules at the stage. She waits for someone to call her name, but the call does not come. By late afternoon, her energy feels stretched thin. Her space still looks the same as it did that morning. No banner, no audience, no attention. She sits again, opens the case again, and turns the same screw again. She isn't fixing anything. She is holding on. Holding space. Holding hope. The pressure does not push her down. It presses inward, asking if she will stay or walk away. The hall is still full of noise, but around her the quiet deepens, as if the whole room has agreed to forget she is there. Her demo time remains hours away, yet every minute grows heavier. She looks at the polished gear one more time, runs her thumb across the edge, and closes the case with slow care. She does not leave her spot. She does not pack up. She sits in the chair, back straight, eyes ahead, as if waiting for the moment the world finally decides to turn toward her. The day moves on without her, but she stays rooted, silent, steady, refusing to let her place vanish. The main stage lights brighten as the professor steps forward, a metal frame beside him holding a large model of interconnected gears. The crowd gathers close, eager for the next big lesson. Maya stays at her table, but the sound reaches her easily. The professor explains the concept of gear correction, using bold gestures and diagrams that appear on a tall screen. He turns the model with confident hands, showing how standard gear systems stay locked in rigid patterns. Then he highlights the tiny scale where slip and friction destroy balance. His voice is steady, certain, final. The crowd nods along, accepting every word as truth. Maya keeps her eyes lowered but listens to every detail. Each sentence feels like it closes a door she has spent months trying to open. Cheers rise when the professor finishes his demonstration. His claim is simple and sharp. Once gears shrink past a certain size, stability breaks. The words hit harder the second time she hears them. She feels her heartbeat slow and then quicken. Her hands tighten around the handle of her case. She knows her design fights that limit not through theory, but through precision she worked for day after day. Yet hearing the professor speak with such certainty makes the room feel even larger. The distance between her quiet corner and his commanding presence stretches like an empty gap she cannot fill. Crowds move from stage to stage, but the current never flows toward her. Kids in matching shirts show off robots that throw small balls into colorful buckets. The audience celebrates every successful toss with applause. Teams shout over each other to invite judges closer. Maya watches from behind her unmarked table, absorbing each moment of recognition others receive. Her own booth remains still. Every time she opens her case, someone else speaks louder, stands taller, or holds up a machine covered with flashing lights. She feels the pressure rising. It settles like a weight on her shoulders, reminding her of the growing gap between what she built and who is willing to look at it. Volunteers begin rearranging the schedule to fit in extra demos from teams who arrived late. Maya checks her time slot on the posted list and sees a small mark next to her name. She asks what it means and learns that her presentation might be moved to the end or removed altogether if the event runs long. She does not argue. She nods once and returns to her table. The room already feels arranged against her. She opens her case again, touches the gear assembly with slow fingers, and breathes through her frustration. She refuses to let the pressure break her. Yet every delay pulls her further from the moment she needs. A group of adults walks by her table, led by a parent with a wide smile. Their robot arm places colored blocks on a small conveyor belt. Maya watches as the crowd circles around them. The professor joins the group, clapping lightly when the arm completes its task. Maya sees the nod of approval, the easy recognition, the way authority hands out respect with practiced ease. She wonders if anyone knows how many hours she spent working late at her kitchen table, measuring fractions of millimeters by hand, adjusting metal parts under dim light. That work sits silent inside her case, unseen and unacknowledged. Trying to stay focused, Maya decides to test her assembly. She moves her chair to block the view from curious eyes and lifts out the device piece by piece. Her mind is a steady stream of steps she has repeated countless times. But when she connects the small motor and turns the gears, a faint click sounds wrong. The gear slides out of alignment and jams. The sound is soft, but it cuts sharply through her confidence. She resets the pieces, tries again, and watches the same jam happen. Her breathing turns uneven. She has fixed this issue before. She knows the cause. But here, under harsh lights and rising pressure, her hands shake. She fumbles with a tiny screw and drops her wrench. Clangs loudly on the floor. Two nearby adults turn toward her. One whispers to the other, just loud enough for Maya to hear. They talk about how tough the expo is and how some kids should pack up early. The words settle inside her like cold air. She picks up the wrench without looking at them, sets the assembly down, and closes her case. Her chest feels tight, not from fear, but from the growing pressure to prove herself before she is erased from the schedule entirely. The professor returns to the main stage for a discussion panel. He speaks about innovation, about pushing boundaries with proper training and guidance. He insists that skill must be shaped over years, not learned alone in a garage or bedroom. The crowd laughs when another panelist jokes about unrealistic dreams. The professor follows by stating again that amateurs cannot innovate here, not at this level, not with something as delicate as gear correction. His tone is firm, not mean, just certain. Each word lands like a stamp that locks the narrative in place. Maya stands behind her table, shoulders tense, holding her case with both hands. She stares at the stage, knowing her work challenges everything he just claimed. But she has no space to show it, no voice strong enough to reach the stage, no banner to draw attention. The pressure spikes around her, sharp and rising, squeezing her place smaller and smaller. Yet she does not move away. She stays rooted, gripping her case, resisting the urge to take apart her device again before she is ready. The expo hall fills with more spectators as the day continues. The professor's words echo through the crowd, repeated by excited students and proud parents. Maya hears her own silence between those echoes. She feels it like an unfinished sentence. Her name remains on the schedule, but the threat of removal hangs over her. She holds her case close, keeping inside it the one thing that might cut through the noise, if she ever gets the chance. Afternoon turns into early evening, and the expo officials announce that some demonstrations will be shortened to keep the schedule on track. Maya hears her name listed near the end again, this time with a note that her slot may be cut if time runs out. She stands frozen for a moment as the crowd reacts to the update, cheering for their own chances while her opportunity shrinks further. A volunteer walks by, telling her to stay close in case of changes. But their attention is already on the next team. Maya presses her hands against the cool surface of her case, grounding herself. Even standing in the same place begins to feel like falling behind. The professor leads a group of students through a hands-on workshop, showing how misalignment destroys small mechanisms. He places tiny gears under a camera, projecting every flaw onto the big screen. Each example supports his earlier claim. His voice moves steadily through steps and theories, backed by the weight of his experience. Students rush forward to take notes, to ask questions, to learn what cannot be done. Maya watches from a distance, noticing how every word shapes expectations. The more he speaks, the more the crowd believes the small-scale problem is closed forever. It is not spoken as doubt. It is spoken as fact. Pressure builds with every nod of agreement. A team of siblings from out of state demonstrates a drone with folding wings. The room bursts with applause when the wings snap open mid-flight. A small camera crew records the moment, and the professor gives a short interview praising determined young engineers who learn under guidance. Maya feels the words land again, the meaning underneath them hanging in the air. She turns her attention back to her own device, checking the edges of her case for marks. She opens it only enough to breathe in the faint smell of metal and oil, then closes it again. She knows she must wait until the right time to test again. Testing too soon might make the jam worse. Her phone buzzes with a text from her father asking how everything is going. She types a reply but deletes it before sending. He will come later to watch her demo. He believes in her without needing proof. But belief alone does not earn her a slot here. Recognition must come from those who sit in judgment. She pockets the phone, breathing slowly as she watches another crowd move past her table without slowing down. Each person who turns away adds weight to her chest, as if the air grows thicker with every missed glance. Near the stage, the professor agrees to answer questions from young builders. Hands shoot up, each one eager. Maya steps closer, hoping to ask something that could draw attention toward her work. But before she reaches the circle, a volunteer stops her and redirects her to the waiting area for upcoming presenters. The message is clear: do not interrupt the flow. She obeys, returning to her table once more. Her voice, her presence, her place remain hidden. The spike of pressure tightens around her. It feels like standing in line to speak, only to find the microphone moves further away every time she steps forward. Two students from another team pass by and glance at her case. They whisper about her gear jam from earlier, speculating that she miscalculated something simple. Maya pretends not to hear, but the doubt clings to her like static. She wants to open the case and run tests until her hands stop shaking. But she knows the device needs calm, controlled movement, not rushed fixes made under rising tension. She forces herself to sit still, even though every instinct pushes her to act. The professor walks near her area again, followed by a small group of judges. Maya stands tall as they approach, her case placed neatly on the table in front of her. But they turn right before reaching her booth and step toward a student with a large automated rover. Maya watches their backs as they leave her in silence once more. Her body does not move, but inside she feels something sharp twist. She is here, yet remains unseen. She has built something new, yet stays unheard. Announcements echo overhead, listing demonstrations completed and cancelled. Maya hears names she expected to follow. Her own name never comes. The pressure spikes again when she overhears a coordinator say they might cut the final slots if the crowd thins too much. She clenches her hands in her jacket pockets, nails pressing into her palms. She refuses to let this moment slip away without trying, but she has not been given space to show anything yet. Late in the day, a small crowd gathers around the professor as he gives another short talk. His message is firm. Innovation requires structure, training, and guidance. Independent attempts, he says, often miss critical details that experts have already accounted for. The crowd nods again. Maya feels the words settling into the atmosphere like dust she cannot breathe out. She looks down at her case. Inside it lies something that might shake those words loose, but not if she never gets the chance to open it again. She sits at her table, waiting. Her place feels like a shrinking island in a sea of noise and motion. Every minute that passes without her name being called adds another layer of pressure. She stays steady, but her heart races faster than she can calm it. She imagines her device working perfectly, the gears aligning, the system correcting itself. She imagines showing what she knows. But imagination cannot compete with certainty spoken from the main stage. Not yet. The professor's final remarks of the day rise above the hum of the hall. He states again that amateurs cannot innovate here, not on problems like this. His certainty echoes through the room. Maya swallows hard. She grips her case with both hands and stays rooted to her silent corner. The pressure peaks around her, sharp and unforgiving. She still has not shown her device. She still has not been given space to speak. Yet she does not leave. She holds her ground, waiting for the one chance she cannot afford to miss. As the lights dim slightly for a scheduled break, most people drift toward the snack tables or gather near displays that still hum with energy. Maya stays seated at her booth, her case resting on her lap, her fingers pressing into the handle. She keeps her eyes low, trying to steady her breathing. The day has stretched long, and the weight of silence keeps pressing in. Just when she adjusts the case on her knees, she feels someone step close. A tall graduate student with a backpack lowers himself to eye level and whispers a simple question. What did she build? Maya hesitates, unsure if the question is real interest or another passing glance. But the student waits, still and patient. She opens the case just enough to reveal the edges of the gear assembly. His eyes follow every line of metal with quiet focus. He asks nothing about her age or school. Instead, he gently offers a thought about alignment pressure and balance tolerance. His voice is calm, not loud, not showy. Maya nods, feeling something she hasn't felt since she walked into the expo. Someone seeing the device before seeing her. It is not approval, not yet, but attention. That alone feels like air after hours underwater. He pulls out a small notepad and draws a quick sketch. Maya studies the curve he marks, noticing how it matches her own adjustment attempts from the night before. He points to the place where friction threatens stability. Maya's heart lifts. She already accounted for that. Her design includes a counterbalance that most overlook. When she tells him, his eyebrows raise slightly, not as surprise that she knew, but as recognition of her effort. For a moment, the noise of the hall fades. This tiny exchange gives her a thin thread of hope, thinner than silk but strong enough to hold. The grad student asks if she has tried a certain kind of slow rotation test. Maya nods and explains her earlier jam. She admits her hands trembled when she tried again. He suggests a simple approach. Breathe, focus on feel rather than speed. His tone carries no judgment. He leaves quietly, walking away before she can say more. Maya closes her case gently, her heartbeat steadier than before. She thinks about running the test again, but decides to wait for her demo slot. She wants her device ready when it matters most. The brief guidance gives her direction but also raises the stakes. Now she believes the device could work in front of others, not just in the private corner of her home. Moments later, the professor gathers a small crowd for another discussion. He stands near the center aisle, gesturing while answering questions. The grad student returns to the group, hoping to share excitement about Maya's design. But before he can explain, the professor waves a hand and dismisses his interest as misplaced sympathy for someone too young to grasp the challenge. The crowd laughs lightly, not cruelly, just following the tone set for them. The grad student falls silent and steps back. Maya watches from a distance, her small spark of hope flickering. She had not been praised publicly, but the dismissal hits her anyway. It feels like a wall slamming shut just as she reached for the door. Trying to steady herself, Maya carries her case to the testing table beside her booth. She waits until the area clears, then pulls out the device to run a private check. Her hands move carefully, recalling the advice to focus on feel, not speed. She presses the motor connection, watching the gears turn. For a brief moment, the movement looks smooth, almost perfect. But then, with a soft metallic hitch, the gear slips sideways and jams again. Maya freezes. She closes her eyes and exhales, but the collapse inside her cannot be undone. That perfect second gives way to doubt, then doubt becomes heaviness. A small group of adults nearby overhears the tiny jam. They whisper, their voices low but not low enough. One says something about how the professor was right. Another comments that perhaps the design is beyond her reach. Maya pretends not to hear, but each word lands like a pin against her ribs. She resets the gear, tries again, and gets the same result. The brief hope handed to her becomes sharper now, like something that cuts when held too tight. She places the device back in its case and snaps it shut carefully, as if closing a wound. For the first time all day, Maya questions whether she belongs here at all. Maya stays seated after closing the case, her fingers pressed flat against the top as if holding back everything rising inside her. The murmurs nearby fade into a low hum, yet she can still feel each whispered doubt like an echo. The crowd returns from break with renewed energy, gathering around newer displays while the last daylight filters through the high windows. Maya watches shadows stretch across the floor, marking how much time has passed without her device being seen. Her name remains on the schedule board, but her slot has been squeezed so far down that people no longer mention it in the running commentary of upcoming demos. She sees others packing boxes of spare parts, joking about what worked and what didn't. Their laughter lands light and casual, effortless. She hears none of that lightness inside herself. Her hope, once so carefully built, now feels too fragile to touch. The grad student approaches again, slower this time, carrying a notebook and what looks like a couple of printed diagrams. Maya straightens, a small lift in her chest returning as she imagines testing again under calmer guidance. But before the student reaches her table, two expo officials step in between them. They redirect him toward another booth that needs assistance. The student gives Maya a short apologetic glance before walking away, his notebook tucked back under his arm. The moment passes quickly, but the shift hits hard. It feels like the world choosing another path, leaving her in the quiet again. Crowds begin clustering for the next big presentation, forming tight rings around confident voices and careful demonstrations. Maya tries to stand taller, hoping the gathering eyes might drift her way. Instead, they remain fixed on louder projects that spin, leap, or flash. Maya lifts her case slightly, as if preparing herself to ask for help or open it again. But the memory of the jam sits heavy. She closes her eyes and feels the collapse of confidence spread. Suddenly, a nearby group points toward the professor, who is giving quick interviews for a student media team. Maya hears him speak about the future of innovation, naming traits required for breakthroughs: discipline, guidance, collaboration, access to mentorship. His voice never attacks, but its steady certainty leaves little room for exceptions. The media team nods along, glancing toward booths that fit the expected mold. Maya's own presence, small and silent, remains outside the camera frame. Each sentence from the professor reinforces what others already feel. The small-scale gear system is impossible, and anyone attempting it alone stands on shaky ground. One of the volunteers approaches Maya, clipboard in hand. They ask if she is still presenting, their tone neutral yet edged with doubt. Maya answers yes, but her voice slips toward hesitation before she can steady it. The volunteer marks something on the clipboard and walks away without further comment. Maya feels her throat tighten. The pressure is no longer just outside. It presses from within now. Every reminder that time is running out pushes her closer to believing the device will never get its chance. As the final hour approaches, the expo hall grows louder, brighter, and more urgent. Teams run last-minute tests, judges hurry between booths, and parents snap photos of completed demonstrations. Maya stays seated, holding her device case on her lap, but she no longer opens it. The jam still echoes in her mind, louder than the voices around her. She cannot shake the memory of the gear freezing, the grinding halt that cut through her confidence. That moment loops inside her like a stuck mechanism she cannot realign. Then, as if to seal the feeling, two adults walk by her table and pause just long enough to whisper. They mention how close her device was to working but add that close is not enough. One says she should be proud for trying at her age. The other responds with a soft sigh, saying trying is not the same as achieving. They walk away without ever looking her in the eye. Maya's shoulders lower a fraction. That comment lands harder than criticism. Feels like pity. She glances at the stage, where another young presenter explains their project with confidence. Applause follows instantly. Maya whispers something to herself, but the sound does not leave her lips. She tries to believe she still has something to show, but the collapse inside her grows with each passing second. The hope that once burned quietly now feels like ash settling in her chest. Maya keeps her hands on the case as if it is the only thing holding her steady. The unanswered question loops through her thoughts. Maybe she was wrong. Maybe she imagined something that could never work beyond her kitchen table. Maybe the professor and the crowd were right all along. She stays there, silent and still, while the world keeps moving around her. Maya leaves the expo hall in silence, gripping her case close against her chest as she walks to the parking lot with her father. He talks to her gently on the drive home, filling the space with calm questions, but she answers only with short nods. She does not describe the jam, the whispers, or the professor's steady voice in the center of the room. She simply stares out the window as streetlights blur past. She feels caught between giving up and holding on, but does not say which way she leans. Her father tells her dinner is in the fridge if she wants it. Maya carries her case into her room, closes the door, and sits with her back against it for a long moment before turning on the desk lamp. The house settles into late-night quiet. Distant traffic fades, leaving space for the small sounds of her tools shifting in the case. Maya lays everything out on the table. The gear assembly, the mini-motor, the fine screws sorted by label trays. She studies each part the way some people study faces, searching for what she missed. The jam from earlier repeats in her memory like a loop she cannot silence. She knows she cannot sleep with that memory echoing. She must try again. She lifts the calibration wrench, feeling the weight of the metal in her palm. She steadies her breathing the way the grad student suggested, letting each exhale slow her pulse. Her hands move gently, not rushed, adjusting the tiny screws on the alignment brackets millimeter by millimeter. She checks every angle twice before tightening each connection. Her lamp casts a soft circle of light across her desk, turning the small metal parts into quiet silhouettes. She turns the gears by hand first, testing resistance, listening for microscopic shifts in sound. She pauses any time she feels hesitation in the movement, adjusting again before continuing. Hours pass without her noticing. The clock on her nightstand clicks to midnight, then 1, then 2, but Maya remains focused. She runs slow rotations, then pauses to adjust the counterbalance weight. A tiny shift in pressure makes the movement smoother, and she notes it in a small notebook. Every change is recorded with exact reference points. She writes with sharp, neat handwriting, documenting the position of each screw, each washer, each adjustment to clearance. She knows she must prove stability, not imagine it. Hope alone will not silence the voices from the expo hall. 3 in the morning, she turns on the motor. The gears move in slow, deliberate circles. She holds her breath and watches. For the first 3 rotations, the motion is steady. On the 4th, she hears a faint tick. She closes her eyes and exhales. The device does not jam, but that small tick unsettles her. Could be nothing, or it could be everything. She writes down the timing of the sound, then resets alignment on the part nearest the noise. She tries again, repeating the rotation slowly. 1 full cycle. 2, 3, 4, 5. Silence. She releases a breath she did not know she was holding. The movement stabilizes long enough to allow a short confidence to rise inside her. But she does not celebrate. Not yet. She runs the test again, slower this time, letting her fingers rest on the bracket to feel the vibration. The gears glide evenly. She writes down her findings. She resets again. She tests again. The cycle continues, steady, methodical, patient. She does not chase perfection in a rush. She chases consistency over time. Her father knocks once around dawn to check on her. She answers with a soft voice, saying she is fine. The knock leaves as quietly as it came. Maya keeps working. Sunlight slowly enters through her blinds, turning the room pale gold. She rotates the gear assembly once more, then again, recording each successful test. She counts rotations in sets of 20. She completes multiple sets before stopping. When she finally sits back in her chair, the device rests silently on the desk, still warm from use. Her muscles ache from leaning forward for so long, but she keeps her back straight as she looks at her notes. She does not know if the movement will hold under pressure, but she knows she gave it everything she could without outside help. Later that morning, she sends an updated request to confirm her presentation slot. She attaches documentation proving she completed the required testing standard for a demo attempt. She waits at the kitchen table with her laptop open, watching the spinning cursor as if it holds her future. Minutes pass without an answer. She grips her warm mug of tea, even though it has already cooled. Finally, a short message arrives. The demo slot is approved but placed near the end of the final day's presentations. She will have one chance. No extensions, no rescheduling. Maya rereads the message twice, then packs her gear carefully back into the case. She wraps the components in a soft cloth and secures them with tight straps. She places her notebook under the lid before closing the case. She checks the latch 3 times. She needs everything to stay as stable as it was in her room. Then she rests her forehead gently against the closed case lid. The room is quiet except for her steady breathing. She knows she has shown nothing to the judges yet. She knows none of them saw her night's work. But she also knows she cannot walk into the expo again without believing her own hands. The next day, she arrives early, long before spectators fill the hall. The wide room feels different in the empty morning light. The colorful banners that once seemed overwhelming now hang still, waiting. Maya sets her case down on her unmarked table again and opens her notebook. She reviews her notes silently, reading each line back to herself. She repeats the adjustments in her mind. She touches the edge of the case with careful fingertips, as if reminding herself of what she controls and what she does not. Expo officials check in presenters one by one. Maya watches them move through the hall, confirming names, marking time slots, adjusting schedules. She stands in line to confirm hers. When she gives her name, the official glances at her, then at the screen, then nods without comment. She is still near the end. Nothing has changed about her place in the order. But now she carries proof in her notebook and stability in her design. She walks back to her booth and places the notebook beneath the case once more. As the booths come alive and teams begin warming up their projects, Maya stays still. She does not open her case yet. Instead, she rests her hands flat on the table, feeling the cool surface beneath her palms. She knows the pressure has not broken. The system that controls the schedule still determines who is seen and who is not. But she has done what she can within that system. Her work waits inside the case, prepared yet untested before others. The suspension holds. She cannot prove anything yet, but her chance is secure. The hall noise rises again as crowds enter. Maya stands beside her table, shoulders steady, eyes forward. Every adjustment she made, every test she ran, every line she wrote sits inside her case like held breath. She does not know if the gear will glide smoothly when it matters most. She only knows she will open the case when her name is called, if her name is called at all. The final day of the expo begins with a low hum of nerves and excitement. People rush past Maya's booth as if late for something important. She keeps her hands on the case, steady and calm, though her pulse beats faster than she can control. Her name is still listed near the bottom of the schedule, but today the list moves with heavier weight. Every name checked off means her moment grows closer. She stays alert, tracking each shift in timing as if every minute could change everything again. By afternoon, the hall is packed. Extra rows of folding chairs have been added near the main stage. The judging panel sits at a long table, clipboards ready, pens tapping. The professor stands beside them, reviewing notes with practiced calm, his voice carrying easily across the room as he prepares for the final round of presentations. He gives short comments about each previous demo, highlighting strengths while gently pointing out weaknesses. The crowd listens closely, trusting his every word. His presence still shapes opinion like a weight hanging in the air. As the presenter before Maya finishes, there is applause and murmured conversation. Maya feels her heartbeat in her ears. She wipes her palms on her jacket and moves to stand where she can see the stage entrance clearly. When the announcer reads her name into the microphone, the crowd quiets with polite curiosity. Some people turn toward her with faint recognition, remembering the long hours she spent sitting alone at her booth. Others pretend they have never seen her before. Maya carries her case forward with slow, controlled steps, climbing the small stage with the focus of someone walking a narrow bridge above rushing water. The professor steps forward to introduce the segment. He speaks confidently about the limits of gear correction, repeating the claim that once gears reach a certain scale, slip and instability destroy the design. He reminds the audience how small mechanisms fail under pressure without advanced fabrication. His tone is calm, almost gentle, as if guiding the crowd through something familiar. Maya stands beside her table on stage, listening without reacting. The words no longer shake her like they did before, but they press in from all sides, raising the pressure until it feels like the room is waiting for her to prove him wrong or fall apart trying. With the professor's final remark hanging in the air, Maya opens her case. She removes the wrapped gear assembly with both hands and places it carefully onto the demo stand. The room grows silent as people lean forward. The lights reflect off the polished metal surface, catching the attention of those who once walked past her table without slowing down. She reaches for the mini motor attachment and secures it to the assembly, her hands steady now. Not because she is calm, but because she practiced until her movements became second nature. A judge clears their throat. Cameras lift. A slow wave of anticipation rolls through the audience. Maya connects the power source. Before activating the motor, she glances at her notebook just once, reminding herself of the adjustments she made the night before. She places the notebook aside, knowing that the device must speak for itself now. With a firm motion, she flips the switch. The gears begin to turn. At first, the movement is so smooth it almost looks unreal. The tiny gears rotate in a precise pattern, correcting themselves as they move. The system adjusts automatically when friction shifts, maintaining alignment without manual intervention. A soft mechanical rhythm fills the silence. People lean closer, eyes widen. The judges stop writing. The motor hums as the gears continue turning, not slowing, not slipping. The professor watches closely, arms crossed. His expression does not change, but his focus sharpens. Maya feels the pressure rise again as she prepares to show that this is not a lucky moment. She lifts a small weight set provided by the expo and attaches one of the weights to the device's load arm. The audience holds its breath. The gears shift, stay aligned, and correct themselves again. A sudden gasp ripples through the crowd. The device keeps moving. Maya reaches for a heavier weight and attaches it carefully. The gears adjust, wobble for a fraction of a second, then correct their motion once more. The hum deepens. Still no jam, no slip. One of the judges raises a hand and requests varied weight tests. Maya nods and steps aside as engineers from the verification team approach the demo stand. They add their own calibrated weights, changing the load again and again. Each time, the gears respond with predictable realignment. A few engineers exchange glances, whispering quietly. Their notes grow thicker with each test. Cameras flash. Someone in the audience stands to get a better view. The professor steps closer, peering at the assembly from different angles. He looks at the judges, then at the engineers, then back at Maya's device. He does not speak, but the silence says enough. What should not work is working. Maya stays at the table, not smiling, not shaking, not shrinking. She watches her creation perform steadily under scrutiny, the product of nights spent testing alone while doubt pressed in from every direction. A judge asks for continuous motion over an extended period. Maya nods again, signaling her approval. The engineers set a timer on the demonstration stand. The gears turn, correcting themselves over and over as weight changes and friction shifts. Minutes pass. The rhythm remains stable. People stop wandering. Even those who were packing up pause to watch. The device continues without failure, as if every rotation is a quiet answer to every skeptical word spoken before. The timer buzzes. The engineers record the full result set and exchange brief nods. One turns to the professor, waiting for a response. The professor studies the assembly again before slowly straightening. The room seems to tighten, as if everyone is holding their breath for him. He does not offer praise or dismissal. He simply acknowledges the functioning device with a short nod. The shift is small, but it is real. Authority bends ever so slightly. Maya turns off the motor. The gears slow to a stop without slipping. A wave of noise follows. Clapping at first, then louder applause, then cheers. She exhales once, quietly, before stepping back from the table. Her hands are steady. Her shoulders rise and fall evenly. She does not need to say anything. The device has already spoken for her. The judges move aside, still writing, still whispering. Engineers gather photographs of the assembly. Spectators talk to each other in excited bursts, pointing at the demo stand with disbelief and admiration. Maya stands rooted in place, watching the reactions ripple outward. The device, silent now, holds its proof in every measured correction it displayed. The professor remains near the stage edge. His posture is unchanged, but the atmosphere around him shifts. The certainty of his earlier claims no longer fills the room the way it once did. The proof sits on the table, undeniable and unshaken. The pressure remains high, not yet released. The applause fades slowly, But the question lingers in the air, unspoken but heavy. Now that the impossible has been shown to work, how will authority respond? Maya does not answer that question. She simply stands beside her device and waits. The room settles after the applause dies down, leaving behind a quiet that feels heavier than noise. Judges sit with pens poised above their clipboards, writing in slow strokes that nobody can read from the audience. Their faces give nothing away. Maya stands beside the demo table, hands resting lightly on the closed case, now holding her device. She does not move, and the crowd barely shifts either. A long breath hangs over the space, almost like the moment before thunder. The professor remains near the edge of the stage, arms at his sides instead of crossed. He watches the judges work, saying nothing. His eyes move from the gear assembly to Maya, then back to the pages being filled with notes. There is no tension in his posture now, just stillness. No dismissal, no argument, no rescue. Silence fills the gap where certainty once lived. Engineers from the verification group gather near the judges, waiting for a signal to continue. They too keep quiet. People in the front row lean forward, expecting another round of applause, but no one begins it. Those in the back stand on tiptoe, yet even they hesitate to speak. The room feels suspended, like a collective breath that refuses to break. Maya's father watches from the side of the crowd, phone still in his hand but lowered to his chest. He says nothing either. He just looks at his daughter with steady eyes, mirroring the silence around her. One of the judges clears their throat softly. The professor gives a single nod as if acknowledging something only the judges understand. There are no words of praise, no sudden speeches, no sweeping gestures. Just one silent acceptance, the kind that does not erase what came before, but refuses to deny what stands in front of everyone now. Maya holds her gaze steady, letting the silence sink in. It feels different than being ignored. This silence listens. The engineers step closer to the table, asking quietly for her documentation. Their voices are low, but the request carries weight. Maya opens her notebook and places it on the table. Pages filled with tidy handwriting and small sketches rest beneath their hands. They flip through each entry slowly, studying the notes without rushing. Not a single sound interrupts the inspection. The crowd watches every turn of the page as if each paper edge carries the story forward without a word spoken. Maya stands with her hands clasped behind her back. She keeps her breathing even though her chest feels tight with leftover nerves. For hours she sat alone, unnoticed. Now dozens of eyes rest on her without speaking. The professor steps nearer, just enough that the audience shifts attention between them. He does not look away from the device or the documentation. When he finally speaks, his words are minimal and measured. He acknowledges the function of the system without explanation, without excuse, without deflection. The recognition is brief, yet unmistakable. The audience remains silent after his words, unsure whether to clap again or let the moment linger. Some fold their arms, others rest hands over their mouths, still processing what they saw. A few glance at the professor, waiting for more, but he offers nothing further. The silence stretches on, landing like a soft weight against every surface in the hall. Maya nods once, a respectful motion that returns nothing extra, giving the silence back to the room. A few engineers step away from the demo stand to speak with the judges. Their voices stay low, indistinct. From where Maya stands, she cannot hear what they say. She does not move closer to listen. She allows the space to remain between herself and the conversations she does not control. Her device sits still on the table, gears no longer turning, yet the memory of their smooth corrections hangs in the quiet like a held breath. Someone in the crowd starts to clap once more, but the sound stops before it becomes applause. The timing feels off, as if people are not ready to break the moment. They wait, and the silence deepens again. Maya lifts her notebook and holds it against her chest, fingers pressing into the cover for steadiness. She meets her father's eyes briefly. He smiles, small and sure, but remains where he stands. Officials move down the line of booths, collecting final paperwork from presenters. When they reach Maya, They speak just above a whisper, confirming receipt of her notes and documentation. They check her badge once more, write something on a list, and move on. Maya does not ask what they wrote. She knows the notebook, the device, and the performance spoke louder than any question she could ask now. The silence holds until the next scheduled event pulls crowd members away in gentle waves. Some glance back at Maya as they leave, expressions thoughtful, curious, changed in small ways. The judges step off the stage without fanfare. The professor lingers for a few seconds longer before walking away as well, leaving behind an absence that echoes stronger than his presence. Maya remains still at her table, her case closed, her notes returned to her hands. The hall has not erupted around her, yet nothing feels the same. The silence hums with recognition, heavy with meaning left unspoken. And beneath that quiet weight, a question remains, steady and unresolved. After all this, will she stand as an equal now, or still wait to be seen? The next morning, the expo returns to life with steady voices and moving crowds, but the atmosphere feels lighter. Names and awards are announced from the main stage, and teams gather close, hoping to hear their projects recognized. Maya stands near her booth, case closed and held at her side, as officials make their way through final acknowledgments. When her name is called, there is no confusion and no hesitation. She walks calmly toward the front as people clear a path for her without needing to be asked. An expo official hands her a certificate that lists her as the sole creator of the self-correcting gear assembly. The words are simple and printed in black ink, but they carry weight far beyond the page. Maya accepts the certificate with both hands, feeling the paper press neatly against her palms. The judges stand nearby, offering quiet nods. Their silence means something different now. It no longer hides doubt. The professor steps forward next. His posture remains formal, but there is no resistance in his voice as he acknowledges her successful demonstration. There are no extra comments, no explanations to soften the shift, only professional acceptance of what she proved in front of everyone. Maya listens without reacting outwardly, yet inside she feels something settle into place, like a final piece clicking into alignment after hours of adjustment. Then the applause comes, steady, open, without anyone waiting for someone else to start. People who never noticed her before now look directly at her. Some smile, others simply clap with quiet respect. Maya stands tall, holding her certificate and keeping her shoulders relaxed as the sound fills the hall. At the edge of the crowd, her father lifts his phone and records the moment without calling attention to himself. Maya glances his way, sees the pride in his eyes, and turns forward again. She takes a slow breath, letting relief wash over her as the applause continues. The silence that once hid her is gone. Now her name and her work stand in the open, steady and seen.